Hello, everybody. Welcome to Liberty in EDC. I'm your host, Daniel Sellers Norman, and we're here with Linda Campbell, who's running for District 1 Supervisor
Hi there.
here in Dorado County. Thank you for coming on, Linda.
Thank you. Appreciate the offer and
Yeah.
the time.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's Linda Campbell?
So I am a transplant from Phoenix, Arizona. That's where I was born.
Oh, huh.
I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. All my family still lives back there. I live out here.
How long ago did you move out here?
I've been out here permanently since 1990.
Wow.
So
That's pretty close for me, too.
a majority of my life. So originally I was living down in Sacramento, and my husband and I met, and we moved up here into El Dorado Hills about 20 years ago. And then we have 3 adult children that all graduated from Oak Ridge High School. And then we have 4 grandchildren. And
Wow.
in fact, my oldest...
Congratulations.
Thank you. They really are better. It's just fun. My oldest grandson is currently a freshman at Oak Ridge. And then my granddaughter is kindergarten at John Adams Academy.
So you have some roots here in the county for sure now?
Oh, yes. And I have a lot of friends all over the area, too. So even though I'm obviously focused on District 1 for my candidacy and the things occurring there, I am aware of the things around the county and able to talk to people and their concerns and the things that come up and factor all that into any decision making.
So tell us, where's District 1 at? Like, how would somebody know if they're in District 1 or not?
So District 1 starts up on Highway 50 as soon as you cross the county line. So that's the west border. The south border of District 1 is White Rock Road. And then on the north side, for the most part, it's Green Valley Road. But there's a little offshoot up Salmon Falls Road, which would be Lake Forest area. And then to the east, it's mostly up to Bass Lake Road. Again, some of it is up a little bit from that. And then through Silver Springs Parkway.
Okay.
So it got condensed a little bit because our population base grew quite a bit according to the last census.
Oh,
So it kind of reduced in size, but it's got a sizable population base.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty small geographically, but very dense there.
Small but mighty.
Small but mighty, yeah. Now tell us, for you, like what is the job of a supervisor? Like what does the supervisor do in our county?
So the supervisors make decisions as needed about land use, which is a really critical issue for us often. And then they make policies associated for the county and then deal with the management of the county budget.
Okay. And so why are you running to be a supervisor?
So probably about maybe 3.5 years ago, I started getting very interested in some of the things that were going on in government. And most, in particular, those things in the county. I think the base of our county, this is our home, this is where we live. This, I think, is where that we can make the most influence and impactful changes.
Yeah.
So I can't control things at the state, can't control things at the federal, but we can control where we live. I started listening to Board of Supervisor meetings, going through the agendas, seeing the things that were going on. And then I actually started getting involved with a community grassroots organization that had organized in El Dorado Hills called Open Space EDH. I've been out walking my dogs, and I saw some lawn signs on some of my neighbors, and I'm like, oh, I'll check that thing out. So I went and signed their petition, and then started getting information from them and started getting involved with what they were doing, which was to try to protect some of our open space land, specifically the old golf course that had been there.
Oh, yeah. And that was just purchased, right?
Yeah, part of it.
Part of it.
Very important, only part of it. So we recently did purchase part of it, and then there's an option to buy the other part of it within the next 18 months. So, but seeing how the community kind of banded together in order to do that, I felt really connected to that, because I think that's the way people can start to feel like they can be effective and really have a voice. You know, it's not just one person walking up and saying something. It's a group of people getting together with a common objective. And I think that's what can transform our areas. Yeah.
So what part did the group that you were part of have in getting the golf course land?
So originally they actually, and I say they because there's a group, an organizing group. I was just one of the many citizens associate that was kind of coming alongside.
Uh-huh.
But the efforts that they put together, getting information from different people, having input into the process, that was what was when it went to the County Planning Commission. The commission rejected the offer or the plan that was presented to them. And so that was a year and a half or so ago. And then the plan came back again from the developer recently. Mm-hmm. And at that time, that's when they were talking to the Community Services District there about the potential purchase.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So are there some specific issues that you're running on?
My main objective is to try to get the community engaged again with the government. And as a representative, I do want to represent them, and I can only do that if I'm able to hear their voices and communicate with them. There's a big sense of disconnect and not being heard, and that's one thing that I want to remedy. I think that's the most important thing, because I think that's the only way that I'm going to be able to represent them and do some of the more difficult work in trying to make sure that the things that they want are what we accomplish at the county level.
Why do you think people have been disengaged?
I think there's a lot of different reasons. One, life, generally, right? I think some of the separation that occurred during some of the shutdowns and things like that caused people to pull back a little bit. But I think more than that, people don't always understand it. We all have different levels of comprehension and things that we connect to, and not everybody can go read a development plan and have understanding of it. So I think having the ability to be able to look at things, piece it apart a little bit, and translate it for potential impacts for them to consider, I think that's going to help them feel like they're more comfortable with what they're receiving for information, and then also being able to provide some of the feedback and input on, here's our concerns, here's some things that we could do. There's a lot of really smart people in our area, everywhere, but in our area. I'm always impressed when I'm in some of the meetings that we have in different organizations, and we'll have callers or people in the room, and they bring up a great point that other people in the room hadn't brought up. And so that's the kind of community engagement that I want to build up and make sure that people are able to hear each other, especially in areas that where it impacts them where they live.
What's your plan for getting people engaged?
So, one, I definitely want to be able to host some more effective meetings with them. I want to make sure that I'm getting information out, like I said, kind of translated on a more consistent basis. I think the Board of Supervisors' agendas are published enough in advance that it gives me the opportunity to be able to take a look at them, kind of pare them down a little bit, and summarize, and then take it back so people have an understanding. I also think that having a consistent newsletter going out, snail mail, right? But there's a lot of people down there that aren't necessarily technically savvy, or maybe they get emails, but everybody's email inbox is just flooded. So how can you digest the things, right? So I think just different ways of being able to get the notifications out so they have an understanding. It's like, okay, so here's the information. We're going to all get together at this point in time, and let's have a talk about it. And I want to be able to have two-way conversations. I don't want it to be where there's information pushed out, but at a high level, and not information received back. So,
Yeah, that's definitely important.
mm-hmm.
So, community engagement, that's big for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other issues that are important to you?
I think a lot dealing with some of the development plans, really the number one thing in District 1 is development. And some of the things that have gone on in the past and some of the things that are coming up in the future. People are realizing the impacts from the lack of roadway space for all of the new vehicles and cars that are coming in.
Yeah.
I also think that there's a lack in comparable growth in potential businesses, including small businesses. So I think anything that we could do to open up some of the opportunities for that would be excellent. But then above that, related to the development, people want to understand where things are at different points in time so they're not surprised by things. And when there's agreements that are made and there's expectations that certain things are going to be delivered, it would be helpful to make sure that that's being tracked so that they can say, hey, where is it at in this process? I'll give an example that it's actually not in our area. It's in Diamond Springs, the Dorado Oaks project.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So on that one in particular, and again, I know people all around the county, so I'm familiar with a lot of the different things going on. There's some great community groups that have been building up, and I love to see that in the county. But for Dorado Oaks, I think at one point there was an approval, a conditional approval, but now they kind of don't know where it stands. So they're in limbo, like, what are we supposed to expect for this? And I think that's something that's a service that a supervisor should be providing back, saying, here's some of the timelines, right? Here's some of the things that you can expect next. I find it interesting because I work in the private sector. I work for Oracle, and I've worked for them for a long time. And when we do large scale projects, there always needs to be a plan. Of course, there's an objective, but then there needs to be a plan to get there. And there needs to be a form of structure in place to make sure that everybody can know when they're supposed to be involved in something, know when they're supposed to be active, and ultimately when they're supposed to deliver, because then there's further things down the road that are impacted by that. If some of the pieces don't come together, then you have to react to that and deal with it. I think some of that procedural type structure, that project type management, I think that's something that would be beneficial to our community members that we should be providing out. They shouldn't have to go dig through stuff and find out where things are. And again, maybe be surprised because all of a sudden something's looming again, and what do we do with it?
Would you say that the community isn't really, informed on those projects now?
Yes. And even just recently, there was an example. I was researching something, and there was a development. There's one of the development plans up there. There had, as part of that, there had been an understanding there would be schools associated with it. And I recently found a document from 2015 where Rescue Unified School District had been researching a parcel that they were potentially going to purchase from the developer, discovered it was a little too much money for the school to pay, but then found a parcel from EID right next to it. So they were going to pursue the purchase of that, thinking they would have a school there. And then the development plan changed, and it would have cut off the road into the school.
Oh.
So they had to step back from the project on the school.
Oh.
So those kinds of things, those little intricacies, they happen, and there's no way people individually can keep up with all of that.
Yeah.
So,
And they were expecting that school to be there for, we have all these more people coming now, we need more facilities, and
right.
now that facility's not going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So having things like that actually come out from, I think that the county should be tracking those things alongside the developer. It's not the developer's responsibility, I don't think, to communicate that stuff out because they don't have a forum to do it. But that's where the county does.
Yeah.
So as public servants, I think that's a service that we should be able to provide out to our citizens.
Yeah, definitely. Now, why should somebody vote for you?
I believe I bring in a different skill set. I don't have government background. I've worked with government agencies before, but I've never worked in the government. And I know that lots of times there's clearly checkpoints in place that are important, but I think sometimes there's a little bit too much bureaucracy involved with it. So I think with a private sector experience, I bring in a different thought process. And since I work in technology too, we're always having to be forward thinking, right? We have to think towards what are we going to do next that's to the benefit of our stakeholders, right? And our employees and our customers. And that's the kind of thing that I think that I can provide, that forward thinking, or even trying to unravel some of the different pieces and things like that, and try to make sure that we are more productive and more effective in serving our citizens.
Now, remind me, what does Oracle do? Because honestly, when I hear Oracle, I think the vacuum, even though I know it's the tech company.
Or you could think of the Giants ballpark right now, because they're currently a sponsor of that. And previously they sponsored the Warriors arena,
right.
Right? Those are just sponsorships. So Oracle's a technology company. They originally started off with a database, and then they moved into applications, software, business software, right?
Okay.
So products like back office things like general ledger, fixed assets, procurement, things like that. And then started morphing and changing a little bit as we acquired some other software companies, but then we made a big change and we acquired a hardware company. We acquired Sun Microsystems. So we started manufacturing hardware too. The great part of that is they did some integration between the database software and the hardware to make sure that it was more effective operating together. And then, of course, most recently, we also started moving towards releasing a cloud environment of our own. So there's an Oracle Cloud out there. And that's been a pretty fascinating change. So we do a lot. Mostly large businesses. We do have government contracts. But small businesses, too. It just depends on the applications that you want, and there's an offering for everybody.
And what's your role there?
I work internally, so I don't work with external customers. I work internally. I do internal support. Originally, I started off doing some custom development for the applications that I said that we were running. We use our own products. And so sometimes as the products were just starting to get developed, there were some things that our business groups wanted that weren't quite there yet. And so in the interim, we would do custom development for that. And then of course, there's some of the big projects we've done. When I first started, we had different data centers, different databases that were all specialized in different regions around the whole world. Our CEO decided, let's try to cut some money out and get rid of all of those different instances and bring them all together in one global single instance. So as a technology group, we actually worked with our business users first, and we said, all of you need to come together to define your processes, because if you don't have a clear process, we can't set up the software correctly, right? It's not going to work. That was a great effort. That was one way that I was able to dig in more into the business side and make sure it was being translated to the technical requirements. And so that's why I say I think that we have the ability within the county to do the same thing. Take some of those big, massive development projects, break them down, and communicate out in a summary way that everybody can have a clear understanding of what's going on.
And you have that skill set for doing that.
Yes.
Very cool. Now, is there anything else that you want to add?
I don't know. I think that just the only reason I'm running is because the community. I wanted them to be able to have a choice, right? We don't have an incumbent running. There's 3 new people, and so I just thought, well, wouldn't it be great if people just had a variety of people to select from?
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't seem like some of the same thing. Since it's a nonpartisan seat, that was another reason for me running.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually choosing not to run with any endorsements because I just want to run as me, and I want to know people, and I want people to be able to talk to each other and have those kinds of communications. Again, that's part of that community building
Mm-hmm.
concept that I went in with, because it isn't just about me getting in office and all of a sudden me thinking that I know what's best and I'm going to do what I think other people are telling me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm truly going to represent the people that are voting for me.
That's great.
So,
Now can you tell everybody when they can vote for you?
the election is going to be March 5th. I believe ballots come out on February 5th, so a month before. So there are going to be at least one other forum, the League of Women Voters for El Dorado Hills District 1. They're going to have a forum at the CSD on February 15th. So that'll be an opportunity for everybody to be able to come and see all of the candidates talking together. So.
Yeah, that's great. Where is it at?
At the Community Services District in El Dorado Hills.
In El Dorado Hills.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in, Linda.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah. So this has been Liberty in EDC. I'm your host, Daniel Sellers Norman, and we're here with Linda Campbell. She is running for District 1 Supervisor. And you can always catch us on Comcast Channel 7, on YouTube, on all the social media. And we'll see you guys next time.
Mm-hmm.